Well, good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world today. And thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today and to talk about specific ways that software companies can grow their business or your businesses. Before we dig in completely here, just a few housekeeping items I wanted to go through. First of all, my name is Bill Gordon with Business Advantage, and I will be our moderator today, and just speaking on just a little bit, but mostly be our moderator today. Today's session is being recorded, so feel free to sit back and relax and know that we will be sending you links out to the recording via email probably a couple days after the close of today's webinar. In order to keep noise down to a minimum, all attendees are in listen-only mode today. But in order to, if you do have a question during the session, or if you're having any technical problems hearing us or seeing us, please do enter those into the chat pane on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will try to get to those. We will have plenty of time at the end of today's sessions for questions and answers on those. But if you have questions as we go, do feel free to put those into the chat pane. If we can answer them live there, and then we will, and otherwise we'll get to them at the end of today's session. If for any reason there are questions we're not able to get to live during today's session, we will follow up with you personally afterwards to make sure that we get all questions answered and taken care of for you today. Besides myself, we have two other speakers today, Chris Turner from Business Advantage and Darren Larkins from SSI. And I'll be introducing them fully and properly in just a couple minutes. If we could move to the next slide, please. Our agenda for today, I'm going to talk briefly about the purpose of today's webinar and do a brief introduction to Business Advantage. Then I'm going to invite Chris in to speak about the question of kind of why grow. And we all know that the businesses can't remain static today, because if you remain static, you can be sure that your competitors are not. And Darren actually has an interesting story to share later today about that and his experience around that. Chris is going to continue talking about how to grow, kind of part one. Then we'll hand over to Darren from SSI to talk through his experience leveraging market research to grow his business. And then back to Chris with how to grow part two. And then a brief conclusion and next steps, and then again we should have plenty of time for questions towards the end of today's sessions. Next slide, please. So the purpose of today is really to help you to grow your business. We're going to be looking at a framework that you can use to think about growth options for your business, and we'll be sharing some best practices around ideas for how to grow your business and using some case studies to do that. We recently published a white paper that's entitled 25 Ways Software Companies Can Grow, and today's session really came out of that white paper. You'll perhaps be pleased to know that we won't present in detail all 25 ideas today, but have specifically selected a few ideas that we thought might be most useful for all of you. That being said, we will make the white paper available to all of you today if you haven't already seen it. Again, in a follow-up email, make sure you have the link to that latest white paper. And we'll be looking at business growth today in the context of the value of using data and market research to support your decision-making. And whether you do that research in-house or leverage a company like Business Advantage to do professional research, we think that the framework and the case studies and best practices we'll be discussing today around business growth for software companies will be very useful. And like you all, our customers know their markets very well, but still they tell us again and again that they keep coming back because market research always brings up new issues and opportunities and assists them in helping make informed and better decisions. Next slide, please. So a little bit about Business Advantage. Business Advantage is focused on B2B market research, sales development, and we're also consulting practice. So those three areas were formed in 1992 by Chris Turner. We have over 30 professional staff who are specialists in different markets, different technologies, and in several methodologies around market research, consulting, and sales development. We have a very, very deep bench in terms of our depth of knowledge and experience around the software market, having completed over 1,000 projects in software industries with some of the world's leading software vendors, as well as small and medium businesses and small and medium enterprises. And you can see just a few of those over on the right-hand side of the screen. And many of our customers have been with us 8, 10, 12, even 15 years. And we're very much a globally focused organization. We've completed over 1,500 assignments in over 100 countries around the world. In fact, recently completed a project over 14 countries, and I think it was over 12 languages that were concurrently being looked at. And just one more slide here. And next one, thank you. So, and here's just the last line of Business Advantage, but just an overview of our 4 key areas of services. So the biggest area we work on is market research, whether that be competitor analysis, market sizing, channel partner research, and then we have a whole division focused on consulting, whether that be mergers and acquisitions, corporate strategies and planning, distribution strategies. Done a lot of subscription strategy work lately, which may be of interest. And then we have a very active data services and sales development set of teams, whether that be cleaning up and enhancing existing data, completely rebuilding or developing new relational databases, or sales development if you do a lot of work with large accounts, target name research, and yeah, a whole set of activities in those areas. So before I hand over to Chris, I had 2 quick polls that I just wanted to ask to get a sense of where you all are today with regards market research. Do you currently do any market research today? And if you could just quickly let me know whether it's yes by ourselves, yes using a professional research company, or no. Looks like so far about 75%. Looks like most of you probably do it by yourselves, and then a few of you doing it externally, and some of you not doing it at all. So let me, looks like everyone's coming there. Thank you. I'll just show that quickly. It's like mostly by ourselves and kind of an even split with fewer people, number of people externally, and some not at all. And then one more that I had before I hand over, which is how important do you think market research is to your growth now or in the future? And not important at all, helpful but optional, useful and necessary at times, or essential? Answers are coming in. Thank you all. Looks like so far kind of an even split on the bottom 3. Super. All right, thank you all for coming in. I'll show you the results quickly. So kind of helpful but optional, and useful and necessary at times, and then a little bit, a smaller number of people, very important, essential. So thank you for sharing that. All right. Now I'm going to hand over to Chris Turner. Chris is the founder and CEO of Business Advantage. He's based in our headquarters in the UK, just outside of London. Chris has over 30 years of sales, marketing, and management experience, which includes extensive international experience working both in the areas of and also with clients across the Americas, Europe, and Asia Pacific. So Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Bill. So may I add my welcome, and thank you also for investing your time today. We appreciate it. So a major question, why grow? And successful businesses inevitably face this dilemma. Do we keep growing or not? Some wonder if they can just establish a steady state and manage the business at that level, then that would be to their advantage. But the problem is that a steady state just isn't possible today. Business, as we all appreciate, is a complex system of many competing and interacting forces, technologies, companies, and economics, all underpinned by fundamentals such as productivity and competition increasing over time. The result is that markets and businesses are changing continuously. To remain successful, businesses must understand the forces acting on them and constantly adapt, refine, and change. The only constant, therefore, is change. So we might ask ourselves the question, how best to grow? Well, fortunately, a Russian-American mathematician by the name of Igor Ansoff applied his work to the world of business and famously created a very useful tool to help us. The Ansoff matrix was first published in the Harvard Business Review in 1957 and has been widely used ever since to simplify thinking and organize growth ideas into existing or new products, into existing or new markets. So in its simplest form, the matrix illustrates 4 ways a business may grow and the associated risks. So if we just look at this in the lower left-hand quadrant, market penetration, we should start there, of course, because we're talking about existing products or services serving existing markets, so increasing our penetration. From a risk point of view, it's the safest thing to do is to stay in that quadrant and continue to penetrate that market. You know those markets, and you've already got success in it. However, if that quadrant can't produce the growth that you want, then we might look at market development in the upper left-hand side, where we're selling our existing products to a new market. There is increased risk, of course, because we have new markets and new customers to understand with different needs, expectations, and dynamics in the market. Alternatively, we could look in the lower right quadrant and by developing a new product for the existing market. But of course, that also carries increased risk of the new product not proving commercially successful. But both these quadrants are adjacent to where we are now and hence are seen as relatively low risk because they partially repeat while changing just one variable of your already proven approach. Finally, and the riskiest option, as I think we all appreciate, the upper right quadrant is where you diversify to target a new market with a new product. It's risky because it changes both variables at once, but at times it can be highly successful. So we see here some of the ideas as it relates to a software company. And using this method and our experience of over 1,000 projects, we've developed these 25 ideas for growing your business. And as Bill has already introduced, we're not going to go through all 25 today, but we're just going to present a small number to you. But the 25 ways of growing software business, the white paper is available from our website and can be downloaded. So let's look at our first area, which is market penetration, selling more of the existing products to your existing markets. And we're going to do this by presenting a series of mini case studies on particular projects that we've carried out for clients. Many businesses sell directly to major accounts and use channels for SMBs or SMEs. And in major accounts, selling directly, salespeople are expensive, and they can spend a considerable proportion of their time, maybe half their time, prospecting, which is, of course, time-consuming and expensive for you in directing that effort. So let's present a case study for a major global software company. This particular company was selling via channels, but also directly to major accounts. And they recognized that there was a challenge. that they were not achieving the productivity they had hoped and the success they'd hoped with major accounts, and they had increased the sales team. So they asked us to look at this for them and see what we could do to help. So we proposed a service to profile these major accounts so that we can know which of the accounts represents the best opportunity. It saved time on prospecting. The sales team became more productive because they were focusing on the very best opportunities. So we looked for these particular accounts. We looked at the structure of the organization. We looked at the technology installed. We looked at who makes decisions, how they make decisions, forthcoming projects. So I think one can get a feel quite quickly that by having this information, it enabled our clients to look very carefully at these major accounts. And what they did is they decided to de-emphasize half the accounts they had previously worked with and concentrate just on half the accounts. In doing that, over a period of 18 months, they were able to double their revenues from the major accounts team while maintaining the same headcount. This project helped them to be more productive by knowing the best opportunities. However, many organizations sell to major accounts, but they sell via channels, as we've talked about, to smaller companies. And here, the Pareto rule, the 80-20 rule, if you will, that 80% of sales typically come from 20% of partners, often seems to be the case. And the number of times we've been discussing with clients, and they've said, if only we could have more resellers, partners like the ABC company, then we would be in good shape. So the companies want to grow, and they're perhaps approached by a reseller who wants to sell the product or service. This is especially often the case in remote markets. However, they may not be the best partner that could be engaged. They may need a lot of support, investment needed. Maybe they won't commit to actually doing what it is that needs to be done in order to be successful. They're somewhat reactive to opportunities rather than being proactive. So we start working with our clients, and we talk about what makes a successful reseller for you. And we build a kind of an ideal profile, or profiles, depending on the client. We research companies in that particular market that meet the profile, and we do that through various methods. We contact the decision makers. We do a kind of a soft sell. We present the value proposition to gain interest. Let me give you one or two examples here. This is a software company based in the U.S. Wanting to, in the technical computing space, wanting to expand in Europe. We followed this process for them and enabled them to appoint a number of resellers to represent them in markets where they had very little knowledge. Another particular project, many of our clients are very interested in China and a lot of expansion into the Chinese market. We've carried out a lot of work in China over the last few years. And again, this particular client wanted to better understand the market in China for their products and services, recognizing that they needed a better coverage of the market. And so again, by following this process of identifying, first of all, the key criteria for a successful partner, profiling organizations in the market that met that criteria, presenting to them in a soft way the value proposition, we were able to identify a number of potential partners, which again our client then took advantage of and moved into that market and built their distribution channel. So to gain market share, we need to look at different elements of the marketing mix. And we found that companies often put a lot of effort into product. into channels, into distribution, and to promotion in terms of seminars or mail shots, advertising, promotional activity. But the price often seems to be overlooked, and it just doesn't seem to be considered as frequently or as often as these other elements of the mix. Our clients, in speaking with them, they often do not know the effect changing prices will have, and they tend to stay away from it. But it doesn't need to be complex, nor necessarily expensive. So a mini case study, this particular client, there is a case study on our website, and so we can talk about the company in more detail. So the challenge here for Manhattan Software was that they were working against major competition. They were not sure if they were winning business but leaving money on the table, the price was too low, or if they lost, were they losing because the price was too high. So they identified, obviously, their leading competitors, and we researched, in this particular case, the competitors' pricing. And a brief comparison of the products and solutions to make sure that we were comparing like for like and different configurations. But it provided our client a great guidance on pricing, and they were able to reprice, change some emphasis, and as you can read here on the testimonial, that it led to resulting in more wins over the competition, more sales, and for a modest investment in understanding the competitors' pricing in that particular market area. Okay, let's begin to look at a different quadrant, market development. And the goal here, if you recall, is to use existing product resources, existing product team and expertise to scale cost effectively and target a new market or new market niche with your existing product or service. So we're going to do another little case study, and we're going to stay with pricing. This is a very interesting study based in international markets. This was principally, as you can see from the country focus here, in emerging markets. And the client wanted to help in growing their business in emerging markets. And a major concern in some of these countries was the regulatory environment around intellectual property, around IP. Piracy can be rife. The market needs the software. They do use it, but how do we generate more sales from these particular markets? So to start with, we looked at one particular market, which was Russia. This, again, is a major software company. And by starting with one particular country, it reduced our client's upfront investment in the project. Test or prove the concept, and then roll it out to other countries. So initially, we carried out in-depth interviews to understand what the market wanted, whether legitimate software was important in that particular market, their concerns over cost, how demanding technically the market and the customer's needs were, and we tried a concept. We developed the idea of using a full version of the software, but it was 2 releases behind the current release. And we recommended a lower price point. And so with that hypothesis, we then went out and did a web survey to confirm those views. And we rolled this out, as I mentioned, in one particular country and tried that idea. The revenues grew dramatically in that particular market. And then we rolled it out and tested it in Turkey, which again was very successful, and then looked at other countries. It was a very interesting project. One of the things that surprised us is that some companies in these markets actually displayed a license agreement on their wall or inside the office or in a conference room or on the door even, to show that they were using legitimate software, and therefore their work was likely to be more accurate and successful. So I'm now going to hand back to Bill, who's going to introduce a client case study that we carried out looking at emerging markets.
Thank you, Chris. So I'm going to introduce Darren Larkins. Darren is the CEO of SSI, which is formerly known as Shipbuilder, and they're based up in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Now, we had a bit of surprise timing in that it turns out that Darren's wife having a baby a little early this week, so he's not able to actually join us today, but he did send his best wishes to all of us. And thankfully, we recently did a similar talk together that we had recorded where Darren discussed his experience leveraging market research to maintain his company's competitive advantage and to grow their business. So I'm gonna play back that short recording here, and you'll see that Darren starts off by explaining a little bit about his company and the situation that caused them to look for and need to look for new ways to drive growth in their business. So I'm going to hope you'll be able to hear this properly.
To give you a better understanding of where we come from and why we undertook this sort of effort. As you mentioned, our flagship product is Ship Constructor, which is actually a suite of 16 CAD/CAM products based on AutoCAD for the engineering and construction of ships and offshore structures. And as I mentioned at the top of the program, we're one of you. We've been doing this since 1989. We've been an ADN partner since 1995. And I've personally been with the company for about 14 years. And with that much experience in doing what we do and working with our clients and working with the markets, it's easy to assume we have a pretty good idea about what those markets are all about, where our products are used, how they're used, and so on. And anecdotally, off the seat of our pants, I'd say that's probably true. You don't do this sort of thing that long without getting that sort of understanding. However, we'd experienced a lot of rapid growth over the last 10 years, as Jim mentioned, and it's been fun from the inside as well. But in the last 3 or 4 years, that we haven't seen a decline, but that growth has slowed down, and that's largely because some of our existing markets have been a bit saturated. So in terms of gathering information, we faced a few key challenges that I'm sure some of you face as well. Primarily, and the first of which is we sell through a third-party reseller channel. So all of the information we get from our markets, other than when we travel there ourselves, is secondhand information. It's been filtered through a lens. And that lens is very narrowly focused on that particular market with no broader vision and no cohesive view of the entire global market. And the second is that the new markets we're interested in selling our products into are primarily emerging markets, which are very rapidly changing and very uncertain markets, and hard to get a handle on at times. So it became pretty clear to us that we required accurate information in order to grow our business in these markets. But we, at that point, had never done any professional market research, and we hadn't done a lot of active internal market research either. And so we didn't consider going outside of SSI to gather that information. To be honest, we had a bit of a preconceived idea that people who didn't know our industry couldn't help us get the information we needed because we've been doing this for so long, and we were even having trouble getting that sort of information. And with that assumption, engaging in what we saw as a very costly exercise, not based on any fact, just we all have an assumption that this sort of exercise can be very costly. It just didn't seem to make sense, so it wasn't something we'd gone after. But Chris, I think, contacted us prior to an Autodesk University we were attending a few years ago, and based on the idea that you don't know what you don't know, we decided to sit down and have a conversation and test the waters a little bit. And after just that first conversation, it became pretty clear that while we did understand our industry products and market, Chris and his team are truly professional at something we aren't, and that's market research. In addition, their background in CAD and design as well as business, Chris has run a business similar to what we all do. That helps to create a very rounded picture for clients like us and helps them to be a trusted advisor in what we do. So the first project that we engaged Business Advantage on actually involved first a broader global market analysis, and then followed by a deep dive into a number of target markets, including very diverse markets like China, India, Malaysia, Turkey, Germany, Vietnam, and amongst others. And we were interested in, going back to the Ansoff matrix Chris was showing, we were very interested in that top left quadrant, new markets for our existing products. And one of the interesting things working with Business Advantage on that is that they worked hand in hand with our own teams to determine the areas of interest, topics, and metrics for all of the research. And so it was not them taking it, going away, and performing some research absent our input. They truly combined their market research expertise with our existing market knowledge and our expertise to put together a team to gather this research and to employ their skills to get the information we needed. And I have to say, the resulting research has been very helpful in defining our strategy going forward. While we learned a number of things and refer to the research regularly, the most critical result of the research was the identification of a competitor who had been quiet for many years, who was actually encroaching and gathering market share in all of the key markets, every single one of the markets that we had indicated we were interested in moving into, they were moving into as well. And this was something we had hints of and had heard from some of our resellers and had discussed internally, but it hadn't been significant enough, it hadn't pinged our radar to enough of an extent that we let it affect our strategic direction significantly. But what we got from the information from Business Advantage was confirmation, clear, concise information and confirmation that clearly showed that threat was actually far more substantial than we thought it was and needed to be actioned. And we were able to course correct as much as 6 months to a year earlier than we would have otherwise if we'd let it build organically and based on our own awareness. On top of that, of course, Business Advantage provided us not just an insightful analysis of all the information they gathered, but all of the raw data. So, as engineers, and coming from a technical background myself, I love to comb through that raw data and have it at my fingertips. So we've actually been benefiting from that research in ways that we hadn't predicted earlier by being able to analyze that information. And as new questions arise, we go back to that raw source of data and try to answer some of our own questions. So in the end, we're very happy with the experience with both Business Advantage as well as engaging in the professional consulting. Our concern about that effort being very costly just didn't pan out. The way that Business Advantage approaches the problem, knowing we're a small business, doing it in very incremental, very chunking up the project, only moving on to the next stage based on what we learn in the first stage, allowed us to do it in a very cost-effective way. To be honest, probably more cost-effective than we'd be able to do it internally, and knowing that in a small company, the primary people doing that sort of research would be people like myself and so on. So that's certainly not something we're hesitate to do again. And in the polls, my answer was that this sort of research is critical, and it's something we don't move ahead with on any major initiatives without undertaking something like this. So thank you very much.
Super. Well, we thank Darren for letting us reuse that. Since he couldn't be here live today, I'm going to pass back to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Bill. Very good. So let's move on to a new segment, the product development quadrant, if you will. And the goal in this quadrant is to use one's existing marketing and sales resources, the marketing and sales teams, the expertise that you've built up, to scale cost effectively and target a new product or service at your existing market. It's a less risky way to grow because it makes use of that existing market and customer expertise, but risky because it includes the development and support of new product or service expertise. So let's look here at another case study. And this particular client wanted to develop a new product. the computer-aided manufacturing area. This is a major investment, of course, for any software company. This new product to an existing client, it may attract new customers that otherwise would not be attracted. So it perhaps offers a more complete solution, raises the profile of the company in the market. So our client is in the manufacturing sector, and initial review of this particular industry, the computer-aided manufacturing space, showed that there were many suppliers. It was an established market. And so their question, was there an opportunity for a new approach, something that was simpler, perhaps more intuitive, maybe a cloud-based approach would be possible. So we carried out a full research program for this particular client, and we started off by testing concepts. And we ran online focus groups. So these are easy to set up. They're less cost than traditional face-to-face groups, and you're able to attract people that perhaps are outside of major towns and cities that otherwise you would not be able to attract. And it enables you to interact with a group, with a moderator, to show stimulus material, to get feedback as these are going. So they're easy to set up and very cost effective. So we started off by talking about who's involved in the workflow, what tasks do they do, what are their challenges, what are their goals. We wanted to try out a new solution, a concept, which we got some interest, and we refined it a little bit, and we tried it again to enable us to develop the concept alongside the market need. We then carried out telephone interviews, somewhat more of a quantitative nature, but nonetheless in-depth interviews in Germany, Italy, the US, and the UK, 4 leading markets for this particular area. And we fleshed out the information. We really understood the potential clients, identified the different personas that would be involved in making decisions and in both using and making decisions with this software, their needs, and how to communicate with them. And we ended the project with some very strong recommendations in terms of what might be possible. I'm pleased to say that this initiative was accepted and has now been successfully launched into the market. So let's move on to the high risk, high reward, the diversification. And this is a new product at a new market. It's the riskiest way to grow because it makes little or no use, perhaps, of existing market, customer, and product expertise. So there are fewer possible economies of scale than in any other quadrant. Further, it involves the simultaneous development of both new product and new market expertise. So the opportunities for incorrect decisions, mistakes, and errors are, of course, higher. On the other hand, diversification of a business, like diversification of an investment portfolio, can lessen overall risk. So one line of business perhaps declines, but another takes off. So it's possible to reduce risk overall for a business. We're going to look at another case study. This is for another major software company, and they wanted to grow and had some aggressive or ambitious targets to grow. So this particular company we've worked with, and they had been looking at 15 different ideas for growth for their business. Some of these ideas were in adjacent markets, and others were completely new to them. So again, you have the classic situation. It's not hard to develop the ideas, but which ones do you follow? So of the 15 ideas, which presented the best opportunity for our client. So obviously the task was to assess the attractiveness of these various opportunities. Which were the biggest opportunities, perhaps, which segments or which markets, which opportunities are growing faster, which might have the greatest potential over time, what is the competitive situation in the market, what are the needs in that particular market, how well are they currently met by the existing suppliers, what is the competitive intensity in that particular market. Are we looking at 2 or 3 very large entrenched competitors, or are there a number of smaller companies that if a larger company entered the market, it might disrupt that market? So what are the barriers to entry? So we looked at all this information and we developed a framework for assessment. And of course this is very important because even larger companies can't possibly invest in 15 different new initiatives over a short period of time. So really, they were looking at 1 or 2, maximum 3, to look at over a period of time. And this might well involve, in looking at the markets, an acquisition. So it was a big investment for the company. So really, if you could think of a big funnel, as we see on the slide here, the idea. Just putting those in the top and working through those ideas. And we've worked with the client in the first phase of this. We are partway through a process and we've looked at 2 of these opportunities in detail. And they continue. They've made some decisions based on that and have actually made an acquisition in one particular market area. They are now beginning to work through some of the other opportunities in more detail. So this just summarizes the opportunity for growth. Most software companies work in different markets with very different products, so a growth strategy for each of your companies, for each company, will be very different. But this has outlined a methodology and a few ideas for growing one's business. So I'd like to, at this stage, express my thanks to you for listening and also participating through the polls and questions. We hope that you found this and the accompanying white paper will be of help to you in developing your growth strategy, or perhaps looking at growth in perhaps a slightly different way. And I'd like to hand back to Bill now. Thank you very much.
Super. Thank you, Chris. And before we move to kind of wrapping up and open up for questions and answers, I had one final quick poll we just added. I was curious about, in terms of the quadrants we've looked at today, which one you thought you might think about focusing on for growth within your business? Is it kind of the lower left, market penetration, or the upper left, market development, or bottom right, product development, or diversification? I probably should have marked which quadrants they were to make this easier. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, and if you can see that poll. Give anyone just a moment more. I think I might have confused everyone with this one, and if so, my apologies. Oh, there's some answers starting to come in. Thanks. So product development. Someone said new product development. Good. All right. Perfect. It looks like, market penetration. Here, let me just share that now. All right, looks like market penetration, quite a high percent, 75%, and then new product development into product development in new markets, in existing markets, 25%. Perfect, thank you for doing that. Let me close that. And Chris, if we could move to that next slide, if you would. Perfect. So just in terms of next steps before I open for questions, at the end of today's session, a short exit survey will pop up, and I know everyone does these and such, but we really do read every comment and appreciate any input that you would provide us to help us do this better, or if you have suggestions for future webinars you'd like us to do, please put those in, but particularly anything you'd suggest to help make this more valuable for you and the webinars that we do in the future. We really appreciate you taking 90 seconds or 60 seconds and just giving us any feedback. We will be providing a link to the 25 Ways white paper following today's session in a follow-up email, which will also include a link to the recording of today's session in case you want to go back and kind of re-review any of the Ansoff's matrix there or the case studies. And finally, if you'd like to speak to Chris or myself about any of your biggest business goals or your hairiest challenges or big hopes that you have for growth in your business and see how we might be able to help, please make a note of my email address here, drop me an email, and we will follow up very quickly with you. So, and then our website at the bottom of that. So with that, I'd like to open the floor for any questions that might have come up today. And Chris, you can move. Well, you can move to the next slide if you want. And again, just any questions that you may have, just enter those into the chat pane on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll do all that we can to help. See if you have any questions. Good time to ask. Okay. One quick one that we talked a lot about, I'll just paraphrase it, CAD and engineering research today. Are there other segments that we specialize in or work in? Chris, do you want to do that one?
Yes, of course. Thank you. So, yeah, we've actually worked in many different segments, but we have carried out a lot of work in the CAD/CAM, PDM, PLM, CAE space. So we have a lot of good experience in manufacturing and construction, as one would imagine. Telecoms markets, we have a specialist in telecoms looking at, we've done work with Nokia, for example, on handsets, smartphones, looking at networks with a major carrier, and mobile cellular infrastructure. So pretty broad experience in telecoms, media and entertainment, digital broadcasting. We've done a fair number of projects in that space over time. The education sector, a little bit of a specialization there. Finance, banking, insurance, investments, aerospace, transport, gaming, really a very broad approach to the market. Really wherever high technology companies target particular markets, and some of our clients have very specialized niche markets. They address the fashion industry, for example. So it's pretty broad-based.
Super. Thanks, Chris. And just one more. How long do projects normally take, or is that an impossible question to ask and answer?
Well, yeah, that's kind of how long's a piece of string, maybe. But it's, I mean, we pride ourselves on being a responsive company, and so literally, we've had a client come to us and say, and this was a big company, and that were closing an acquisition, and they needed some final intelligence, and they needed it within a week. And we put a team of people, 5 or 6 people, on this specific project, and got them the information that they needed. But obviously, that is exceptional. Typically, for a market research project, 8, 10, maybe 12 weeks, depending on the size, the scope of the project. But as I say, we can respond faster if needs be.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, it looks like that's it. I don't have any more questions coming in. Any final questions from anyone? And if not, I think we'll wrap it up. And just on behalf of all of us at Business Advantage, just like to say thank you very much for investing your time and spending it with us today. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks, Chris. Bye now.
Thank you. Goodbye.